I wanted to finish up our look at Job by looking at the ending parts of Job. So when we last left off, we had Job sitting on an ash heap, or like the dung pile outside the village outskirts, where he has ripped his clothes, shaved his head, gone into this mourning period where he's basically shut down completely. He's left his wife completely to handle whatever problems or issues they have as far as like their new status as the low people on the totem pole in the village. Her inability to have someone help with burying the children, she's got to do all that herself. And Job's basically shutting down. He's not helping anybody out at all. And so in her frustration, in her anger, in her grief, she tells him to curse God and die. Job is then visited by three of his friends, Bildad, Zophar, and Eliphaz, who come to him and do what good friends should do, or what they're called to do, which is for 7 days and 7 nights they sit with him, and they don't say a word. They're just a presence there to be there when he grieves, to listen to his sighing, listen to his mourning. And then when Job finally comes out of his state of grief, he's angry. And for the next middle parts of the chapter, there's a back and forth between Job and these three friends as they try not so much to comfort him, but to get him to see reason. And the reason they want him to see, or the rationale they want him to see, is that the reason this is happening to him must be because of the sin that he has committed. That's the calculus, the cosmic calculus we talked about earlier. Job does not feel that he's done anything wrong, and he continues over and over again, despite the browbeating and the interrogation and the intense scrutiny that these three friends give to him. He continues to maintain that he's innocent, that he's done nothing to deserve this. He curses the day that he's been born. He doesn't understand why any of this has happened to him, and he begins to turn away his anger toward these three friends, toward God. Now, this is where the patience of Job sometimes gets called into question. Is he really being that patient? And the answer is no, not in this section, but he is angry, and I think he has every right to be angry. He's confronted with the theodicy question. Why are bad things happening to me, a good person? I followed all the rules, I did everything right, and still I find myself in a state of suffering. And so Job wants an answer, and he won't be satisfied until he gets one. And so if we go to the end of the story, so for some 24 chapters in between, Job is basically going back and forth with these three friends who take their turns kind of talking about how, do we accept the good with the bad? You must have done something. God wouldn't punish you unless there was a sin. Tell us what you did so that you can confess it and get it off your chest, and maybe God will find forgiveness for you. This is the idea that we have sometimes today, that if we do all the right things, good things should follow and happen to us. But that's certainly not the case from what Job can tell. All right, so I'm going to pick up in chapter 29. And this is where God is talking to, or Job is talking to God. And Job again took up his discourse and said, "Oh, that I were in the months of old, as in the days when God watched over me, when his lamp showed upon my head and his light, and I walked through darkness. And I was in my autumn days, when the friendship of God was upon my tent, when the Almighty was yet with me." Okay. And then he goes on, "When the ear heard, it called me blessed, and when the eye saw, it approved, because I delivered the poor who cried, and the fatherless who had none to help them." And Job goes through this litany or listing of, here's everything I did, okay? I kept a tally, right? And he doesn't understand that. And then he turns to his friends and he's saying, now, because of my lowly state, they make sport of me. I'm in chapter 30. Who are younger than I, whose fathers I would have disdained to set with the dogs of my flock. But could I gain from the strength of their hands men whose vigor is gone? Through want and hard hunger they gnaw on dry and desolate and ground. They pick mallow in the leaves of bushes, and to warm themselves the roots of the broom. They are driven out from among men, and they shout after them as after a thief. So even the people who were previously bad, in Job's eyes, these were wicked people, they're exalted to a higher state than Job is, and he wants answers. Okay? and he believes that God has basically stricken him for absolutely no reason. And as we move forward, we see at the end, I want to get to chapter 40, okay? Job begs God and says, give me an answer, give me an answer, give me an answer. And finally, I love how this happens. And the Lord said to Job, okay, actually, no, let's go one before that. Chapter 38, because this is where the big thing happens. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up your loins like a man, and I will question you, and you shall declare me. So God is a little bit angry with Job, and it reminds me of the parent who the child has said, why, Daddy, why? Why am I being punished? And the dad, the God, finally comes out and says, you little man, I'm God, you're man. You don't get to question what I do and why I do it. Okay? That's beyond your understanding. And I think that's ultimately what the answer in these final chapters of God is to Job. And that's the answer that we get as human beings, is that God operates in a realm that is unfathomable to men. We have our tools for understanding things, but those tools don't extend to the divine. Our science, our mathematics, our linguistics, our art, all of it is great for the world we live in, but not so great for the worlds that we're not a part of or that we cannot see. And God considers his world to be part of that. So this is an issue that we will talk about when we get to the consilience thing that I'll be talking about this week, as well as next. So it's something to kind of keep in mind. It's not a satisfactory answer, except Job says, hey, you're right, I didn't understand. And as you read through those sections, you'll see some wonderful images of the scale of God, who talks about picking up a whale in his hands and unhooking the hook that he used to fish with. And he says, Job, you couldn't know the feeling of doing that. You don't understand what it is to make a mountain rise out of nothing. So because you can't understand how and why I operate, there's no way you could understand why I do the things I do, okay? You're asking the wrong question. And so for Job, he must be satisfied that I got to talk to God. I have some kind of street cred now, which, if you think about it, is very rare. At least if we look in the Old Testament and even the New, it's very rare for individuals to have conversation and connection to God directly. They can send up prayers, they can see angels occasionally, but the idea of the sight of God is just unfathomable. Even Moses had to kind of look from behind because the light was too dazzling. So Job is in very, very, very rare company. And the fact that the friends see this gives him immediate street cred with everybody. God knows your name, okay? God talked to you. So Job leaves. God tells him, I don't operate by man's rationality. I don't follow your rules. But you know what? Because you've been a good guy and faithful servant, I'm going to give you everything back, okay? Not that I have to, but he does anyway, which leaves us in a quandary. Well, didn't he say he does what he wants? He doesn't have to do good to you because you do good, and now he's rewarding you for being good. And I think that's part of the mystery that we're left with, and it definitely is a mystery. So that's where I'm going to kind of end this part, and then we'll talk a little bit about the larger issue of the consilience, or the unified field theory, and how that's going to work for us. All right?